Grr, arg.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Mixtape Podcast. What we do here is we talk about movies from a screenwriter's perspective, so I hope you enjoy it. I will be your host. My name is Dean, and I am joined by my co host Marcelo. And up this week, we have one of my favorite movies, The Truman Show, released in 1998, directed by Peter Weir, who is Australian. I always like to get that in. I don't think people know he's Aussie, and written by Andrew Niccol. And if you don't know what The Truman Show is about, it is about this. An insurance salesman discovers his whole life is actually a reality TV show. So the opening scene is a close up of Ed Harris's face, and he plays Christoph. Now we kind of know who no, we don't know who he is. You're kind of guessing who Christoph is, and he has this beautiful quote, which I'm going to quote now. He was born in front of a live audience. We've become bored with watching actors giving us phony emotions. We are tired of pyrotechnics and special effects. While the world he inhabits is, in some respects, counterfeit, there's nothing fake about Truman himself. And then we meet Truman, obviously played by Jim Carrey, and he's talking to himself in the mirror. But what I love about this movie is I would say 95% of the shots that the director, Peter Weir, uses in this movie is not the normal shots that a director would use, because Truman is in a reality TV show. So all the angles are from either down below or a button on someone's jacket or, like fucking attached to a bird or something. So they're all really weird angles, but it doesn't take you out of it. It makes you more immersed kind of in the story. So he's talking to himself in the mirror, and there's a camera that's behind the mirror. So you can see basically behind him is the bathroom, and then we meet Meryl, which is his wife. She's basically saying, nothing's fake, like everything is real. She's talking about it, and over this is the opening credits to The Truman Show. Now, usually it would be the opening credits to the movie, but because we're seeing a show within a movie, it's the opening credits to the actual Truman Show of the show, the movie that we're watching. Yeah, that's right. And then we meet Marlon, which is Truman's best friend. And he also says that all of it is real. It's just controlled, which is kind of like, I mean, look, reality TV show is like massive now, and everybody says it's fake, but it's fake to a point. It's controlled. It's like he said, like it's real. It's just kind of it's maneuvered in certain directions. Like they maneuver Truman to do certain things and make certain choices, as you'll see in the movie. So it's him making the decisions. He's just kind of maneuvered into making the decisions that they want him to make. So I thought the opening scene was great with Christoph. You meet Truman, you meet his wife, you meet his best friend. That's like within the first 5 minutes. And I just thought it was a great opening scene, even though you don't really know what's going on quite yet. It's intriguing. It's intriguing because this was maybe not the first movie to do it, but it would have been probably the first mainstreamy movie to do it. So what do you think?
This movie was really the first movie to sort of correctly predict our culture where it is now and how obsessed we are with reality TV and how obsessed we are with watching things on our phones, with watching people on webcams. Like this movie basically predicted the universal obsession with watching other people go through their lives, because you have bloggers on YouTube now that are making millions of dollars basically broadcasting their lives on the internet for all their followers to watch. To me, that's the most fascinating thing about this movie. But talking about the movie in general, I love the opening quote by Christoph in this movie, because it's kind of creepy. The quote that he says, it's lovely, but it's kind of creepy. And the reason that it's lovely and kind of creepy is, I think, again, it speaks to the way that culture is nowadays. And when I watched that opening quote, I was like, the guy who wrote this movie, did he know what was going to happen in like 10, 20 years from now? It's almost like this movie's stuck in the 50s. The way that Truman talks, the way that the clothes, the cars, like it's just sort of off, and in a delightful way. And that to me was just another reason why I love this film.
Everything in his world is perfect. There's no rubbish, there's no dirt, there's no grime. Everything is perfect and perfectly in its place. And that's all he knows. So, towards the end of the movie, people are like, why doesn't he know it's fake? It's because that's all he knows. And we'll get into that. We'll get into that. So the next scene, it says there's a title card, day 10,909. So Truman steps out of his perfect looking house and he's ready for work and he's got his briefcase and he sees the neighbors across the street. And he's very happy, very go lucky, very smiley. Like everything about his life is perfect. There's no issues. And then he looks at them and he says, good morning. In case I don't see ya, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. And that's kind of that's
Oh.
kind of I love that. That's rolled in and out of the movie. And I love listen, the screenwriter for coming up with that is like an absolute fucking genius.
I
I
am
love it.
that sounds like the sign off this sounds like the sign off of a 50s journalist. It's just so great. I love it so much, but
It
off you
sounds
go.
like it sounds like the sign off to like fucking like Leave It to Beaver or something. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
Bewitched or something like that. But anyway, he just as Truman opens his car door, something crashes from the sky, and Truman goes to investigate, and he has no idea what it is. He's looking at it, and it's a stage light. We know it's a stage light. He doesn't. He's never seen this before, and he's kind of hesitates on picking it up. And he's like, "What the fuck is this?" Multiple things like this happen in his world, very, very subtly. But every time it happens, he goes, "What is that?" That's what I love about it. It doesn't. This movie, the change in Truman doesn't happen quickly. It happens very organically, which is why I love this movie. So, thoughts?
No, I absolutely love the sort of second scene in this movie when Truman steps out of his house because Dean mentioned it. The director uses very, very, very interesting shots in this movie, and it's because essentially the audience, us, are watching Truman be in this reality show, and all the angles are angles that a reality director would use when Truman first steps out of his house. There's a crash zoom on Jim Carrey's face before or after he sees the neighbors, and the way that Jim Carrey cocks his head in this cockney sort of Dick Van Dyke way is like it's just so 50s. It's so like sitcom-y. I absolutely love it. But the moment when the other moment that is just great when Truman is about to step into his car, as Dean mentioned, a fucking stage light falls from the sky. And the funny thing about it is you just hear it and then you see it fall on the ground where Truman is. But when Truman looks up, he sees nothing but the sky, and I'm like, "Huh, that's interesting." To move to another point that Dean said, I also love the fact that Truman starts to have these questions about his life because he sees these odd things that don't make sense. And I really like how the writer of this film just plants it very, very subtly in scenes throughout the course of the movie. It's not like one big massive event where Truman has to process all this information. It just happens very, very slowly.
So Truman is now driving to work. And now on the radio, and this is interesting because there is a camera behind the radio. So you can see the radio numbers in front of the camera, but it's pointing up at Truman driving. This is what I mean by like weird camera angles, but because of what we're watching, it actually works and it's actually really awesome. So on the radio, Truman hears the radio people saying, "Oh, there was an airplane that was shedding parts over Sea Haven." That's the town he lives in, Sea Haven. And you'll see periodically through the movie, every time something happens that's out of the ordinary and Truman starts to question, there's always someone or something that happens to push it to the side, to make oh, that was just a coincidence. Oh, no, that's not true. That's not true. Because again, it's a controlled environment. They don't want him thinking that anything's wrong. And there's so many times that this happens in the movie. So he hears there is an aeroplane shedding parts. He's like, oh, okay, cool. And now he's not even going to think twice about it. So when Truman gets to kind of like near his work, he goes to a magazine place and he buys a fashion magazine and he says it's for his wife. And then he heads to work and he's at his desk because he's an insurance salesman. When he calls directory assistance for the Fiji Islands, as soon as, because he's doing it really quietly because he's at work, and as soon as he gets on the phone, a guy comes and a coworker comes up with him and he's holding a newspaper that and the title on the what is it, the not the title, the cover story on the newspaper says Sea Haven, the best place to live on earth. Again, it's like Truman wants to go somewhere else, and right there and then someone shows up, kind of very, very subtly showing him, no, Sea Haven is the best place. Like, it's just really cool how they do that. So anyway, Truman's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. So the guy goes away and he gets back on the phone asking for them to search for someone called Lauren Garland in the Fiji Islands. We don't know who she is. We don't know why he's calling for the Fiji Islands, and it's not found. And then he tries Sylvia Garland, not found. And he's like, okay, they're not found. And then he grabs the fashion magazine that he bought and he's looking at these models' faces and he rips out a page with the girl's eyes only. And you're like, okay, why is he doing that? Is he weird? We have no idea. So Truman's boss comes to his desk and gives him an account to close. He goes, Truman, you got an account to close. But he sees he has to travel to across the bay to Harbor Island. And Truman instantly says no. And you can see he's anxious. But once you get into the movie, you see why his boss did that. It's another reason. It's another thing they're doing to stop Truman from thinking outside the box, from doing what he wants to do. They're trying to stop him any way they can, but they have to make it subtle. They have to make it look natural. So, what do you think?
Yeah, look, I really like the plotting in this scene because Truman talking on the phone to the travel agent, asking about this island and asking for this person, like Dean has said, is not a nothing burger. That comes back. And I also really, really enjoy how the writer organically put in that when Truman gets this job from his boss to go basically across the sea to close this to close this deal. I really like how Jim Carrey plays it in that he's very, very hesitant and he just sort of like just by his body language, you can really, really see that he has a problem with going to a specific place to close this deal. Even when he says, I don't want to do it, his boss says, oh, I didn't want to tell you this, but the company's going to start cutting people. So his boss sort of baits him into doing something that he doesn't want to do. And I love how that sort of plays into the one fear that Truman has in his life, and it's really, really interesting how the writer and the director weave that in organically within the story.
So Truman gets to the wharf, pays his ticket, and he steps onto the walkway headed to the ferry. Now, on the walkway, he looks to the side and there is a half underwater sunken rowboat. And then he just falls to his knees, like he almost has an anxiety attack, and then he races off the wharf. So and that's that scene. But so there's a problem. Why has seeing that boat brought up a bad memory? You'll see why later on. It's kind of tied in really nicely. But basically that scene was to show you there's a trauma, and there's a trauma associated with water, which is why he's never left because there's a trauma. Anyway, go.
Yeah, yeah. Look. It's plotting. I
Mm,
love writers who plot.
mm.
I hate, and Dean will back this up. I hate when characters have trauma shit that just comes out of left field. I
Yeah,
hate it
yeah.
when writers do that.
Mm.
I cannot fucking stand it. It drives me bananas. And if I don't want to speak for you, Dean, but does that also drive you bananas?
If you're going to come up with a trauma for a character, you can't just spring it on someone just to have a trauma in a script. Like, look, a lot of B grade movies do that. They're like, oh, we have to have them have a trauma. Oh, let's just have them being afraid of heights. And they just slot it in there. But, like, where does it come from? We have to know where the trauma comes from. Otherwise, it makes no sense. But most writers, not most, a lot of writers do that because they have no idea what they're doing.
Also, the thing that I have an issue with is when writers think of a trauma for a specific character, but they don't think of a creative and an interesting way to cook it organically into the story. So
Yeah.
because they can't think of a nice way to do it, what do? They have the character just say it out loud. I'm like, no,
My favorite.
that's boring. It's boring.
I'm afraid
Show
of
us.
spiders.
Yeah, no, boring. Show us that
Yeah.
you're afraid of spiders. So I'm going to bring it back. I love that the writer in this film
Mm.
showed us that Truman has a thing with water. I love it that Truman didn't just show up to work and talk to somebody. Oh, hey, last night I had a nightmare of being on a boat because I had this thing when I was younger. I'm so glad
Mm.
that the writer of this film didn't do that thing.
That's what most writers do right there. Right? What Marcelo said, that's what they do. They give exposition about a past trauma when traumas are traumas because they're not spoken about because they're traumatic. So you're not just going to sit there with a coworker going, "Oh, it's bringing back a trauma." That's not how we deal with traumas. We push them
Yeah.
down, and so we don't feel them anymore.
The best way to handle that is to show the damn trauma or to show how the trauma affects your main character and
Yes.
what he does as a result of that, because that
Yes.
makes him more interesting.
Yeah, exactly. So Truman decides he's going to spend some time with Marlon, which is his best friend. And he tells him he wants to go to Fiji. Like he wants to get out. He wants to see the world. He wants to explore. Like he's been in Sea Haven in his entire life. Like even though yes, it's a perfect town, it's just there's so much more out there. And Marlon says, "Look, Sea Haven is the best place. It's the best place he's ever been, and he's traveled all over. Like there's no place like it." But Truman is just itching to explore outside his home. But this is another example about all these people in Truman's world are actors.
They're actors.
And they're being told, they're being fed, and you'll see it later, what to say in order to stop Truman wanting what he wants. But that's just another example of them controlling and coercing him into thinking what they want him to think, which is pretty fucking sad. Anyway, that's that scene.
Yeah, yeah. If you really think about it, this movie is about a man in a bottle. Who thought this was a good idea to trap somebody in a place to broadcast his life to millions without him being aware? Like, who thought this was a good idea? So that also makes me nervous for humankind. But I also am thinking to myself, these actors who get paid to be the people in Truman's life, they're a bunch of dicks.
Look, the thing is, it's not a good idea, and there's so many things in the world right now that it's like it's not a good idea, but the reason they do it is because it makes money. Like
That's true.
it makes that's all people care about is making money. And yeah, I thought that too. I was like, wow, they're participating in a fake reality for this person, like for money. Like it's just yeah,
Yeah,
it's when you look at the Truman Show, it's actually sickening because there are
yeah, it
how many
is.
people are in his world? There's like hundreds of people, hundreds of actors that are willing participants, knowing that this is a fake reality for someone for a show for ratings. And you know what? If the Truman Show was done today, there would be so many people lining up to be actors to portray a fake world, and that is actually really sad. It's really fucking sad.
Yeah, yeah.
But anyway, Truman's sitting at the beach and he's starting to remember when he was a boy with his dad out on the ocean and they were in a rowboat. And a storm came and basically his dad fell overboard and his dad drowned. And now we know why he has anxiety when he saw the boat at the wharf. He doesn't like water. He doesn't go near the ocean. He doesn't travel across the ocean. He's got a deep seated trauma of it. And then it begins to rain, but only on Truman. And then he steps, it's like a single stream of rain. And then he steps out of it and he's like, dry. And he's like, what? And then he looks up and then the stream of rain like moves to where he is. And then Truman runs out of it. And then the rain moves to where he is. And he kind of starts making a game out of it. And then it starts to rain everywhere. And he's just having a lot of fun. But again, that is another kind of precursor to something's wrong. But for Truman, it's normal because that's probably happened so many times before. He probably thinks that's normal. Anyway,
Yeah,
thoughts.
yeah, but that scene looks so weird because I'm like, rain doesn't work like that. Rain does not follow you around. Like it was it was so funny. But I'm like, there's something wrong here. So I'm like, I really hope that Truman registers this for later on. But I really, really love how the writer picked up a little seed that he dropped just a few scenes ago of Truman not being able to go on the docks because he was around water, with us learning that the reason that Truman is afraid of water is because when he was a kid, he was in a boat and his father drowned in the ocean. I love how the writer did that because he didn't do it by exposition. He showed it to us. I love that.
He showed it, but he did another thing that's ingenious. Like I've seen in movies before where the characters they think back and you have a flashback of what happened and it's like, "Oh, okay, like it's exposition, all right, you need it." But the fact that Truman was on the wharf and then he saw the sunken boat, and that's what brought the trauma up. That's why he's sitting on the beach thinking about it. So he's not just sitting on the beach in a random scene going, "Oh, I'm just thinking about this." No, the trauma's been brought to the surface, which is what happens, and then you think about it. So whether the writer was intending that, I definitely see that works better, and then that was a genius move from the writer.
He led us into it.
Yes, yes, yes. But that's how traumas
He
work.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
We're
yeah,
triggered
yeah.
and then it comes up.
I choose to believe that he actually I choose to believe that he plotted it out like that.
I think so too.
Um, yeah, because those scenes were too specific not for it to be plotted out.
So Truman comes home and he tells Meryl, his wife, he wants to travel for a year. Let's just go. Let's travel for a year. Let's go around the world. And she's dead against it because she has to be. She has to keep him there. She has to squash his dreams. So she tells him, Truman, we have financial responsibilities. We can't just leave. Like, who's going to pay the bill? Who's going to do this? Like, we don't have enough savings. Let's just wait. We'll save up the money. It's ridiculous to want to travel. We have everything we need here. Why would you want to leave? Basically, the same thing Marlon said to him. And he was so excited when he came in. And after she did that to him, you can see he's like so deflated because he went to his best friend. His best friend said, no, why travel? He goes to his wife who's supposed to support you. She's like, no, well, we can't travel. And it's like, but he has this thing inside of him where he just wants to leave, but everybody keeps telling him this is the best place in the world. Listen, it doesn't matter if you live in the best place on the planet where everything's perfect and you have everything you need. The fact is, there's a whole world out there that you could learn from, that you could meet new people that you don't meet walking down the street. There's an entire world. So it doesn't matter if your world physically is perfect. There's still so much out there that, you're missing out on. And that's where it comes from. He feels like he's missing out on all the things that the world has to offer. He can always come back to Sea Haven, but he wants to experience more than this.
Yeah, I really found myself in kinship with Truman in various aspects when it came to this movie because I really identify with Truman's need to leave to leave his home and to explore because I have grown up in sort of a bubble and I to some extent haven't really lived that much. I mean, I know a bunch of people because of the internet, but I haven't experienced the things that I should have experienced because of things. And when Truman goes to his best friend, then goes to his wife, and they both say that, why would you want to go anywhere? You have everything you need right here. That really, really rang home with me because when I bring up that I want to go traveling or when I bring up I want to go do this, one thing that a lot of people in my family say is that, oh, that would be great, but we don't have the money. So money is always, holding me back from going to other places, from experiencing other things and things like that. So on that level, I really felt bad for Truman after he spoke to his wife and his best friend, and they both said no. They said it because they were actors, but I really that really struck a chord with me because I have felt like Truman various times in my life where I said, I want something more. I just can't have it right now because of X or Z.
Marlon and Meryl said no, don't go because they're actors, but there are people like in real life that have people like that in their life that say, "Why would you want to do that? Why would you go?" That's even more fucked up when they're not actors and they still don't
Right.
want you to explore the world and explore who you are. That's even more fucked up.
Right. 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 Right.
So Truman's on his way to work again, and he picks up another fashion magazine. And it's funny because I never noticed this before. And as he's standing, grabbing the fashion magazine, there's a man behind him, and he has a newspaper, and on the front page it says, "Who needs Europe?" with an exclamation mark. So everything around him is basically saying, "Don't go, don't leave, stay here. It's crap, it's shit out into the world." It's subliminal messaging
Yeah.
that is so it's so subtle that it's super awesome. So he walks past an old homeless man and stops. And he looks at him and he sees it's his dad, because now we know what his dad looks like because of the flashback. And as soon as he looks at this guy and he says, Dad, two people fucking out of nowhere come and grab this guy, forcing him onto a bus. Truman runs screaming to stop the bus. He's banging on the side of the bus with his briefcase. Stop, 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 like screaming to the top of his lungs. And it doesn't stop and it just drives off. And this is the most unnerving part of the whole thing. And I think this, you can tell me what you think. This is the part, I think, where something clicked to Truman, something is wrong. Because after the commotion, after the screaming, after him running after the bus, pelting the bus on the side, the bus goes away and he's caused a massive commotion. But when he turns and looks around, everything's normal. Nobody's looking at him. Everyone's just doing their normal thing, like a fucking Stepford Wives episode. You can see on his face, okay, I've just caused a huge thing. Nobody's looking in my direction. Nobody's coming up to him. Nothing. It's like robotic. And that was really creepy to me, to be honest.
Yeah, and the really interesting thing about the scene to me is when Truman's dad is on the street there and he's taken away by the goons, and the goons take his dad to the bus. Things start happening. People get in front of Truman. He almost gets hit by a car. So it's so funny seeing the extras get in his way, trying to stop him from chasing after the bus. But you're totally right. After the commotion goes down, everybody around Truman is like nothing happened. And if you're in real life, if something like that happens, there would be tons of people going up to the person going, "Oh my God, did you see that?" There would be a ton of people with phones out, and there would be cops showing up, but nobody showed up. Everybody was like they were a bunch of robots. So I do think that that was a key moment for Truman to figure out that there is something indeed wrong here.
So Truman visits his mum and tells her she saw dad, and she's like, no, that's not possible. He died, Truman, come on. And Truman says, but they never found his body, so it could be. And again, his mother squashes his enthusiasm. No, it's not possible, basically trying to convince him. It's not hard because in this respect, it's not difficult to convince him because, his dad died and maybe he's seeing who he wants to see. But Truman holds strong on this. He's just like, no, I know it was him. His mom's like, oh, no, don't be silly. Again, another person that makes him feel crazy. He's surrounded by people that make him feel crazy, and he's the only one that's not. And to everybody out there, if you're surrounded by people that make you feel crazy, you're probably not. You're probably the only one that's fucking sane. So, thoughts?
Yeah, I really found the scene disturbing because this is supposed to be his mother, someone that he trusts and someone that he confides in. And yet again, like Dean said, this woman is saying, "No, you're probably seeing things, and your dad died years ago, and it's just you overreacting." It's a scene that makes sense, but it's like intensified in the awfulness because us as the audience member, we know that it's a show, and Truman's the only one that doesn't, and it's just fucking sad. And you know what? It gets to a really at this point, I'm infuriated with all these actors, and I want to fire them all. And like I want to take away their sack cards too.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all dicks. Like at this point, I wanted Truman to like I don't know. I just got more frustrated with the actors who participated in this fiction throughout the movie. It just really annoyed the crap out of me.
Yeah, me too. So Truman is in his basement and he's looking at old photos of him and his dad, then opens a box with a woman's cardigan in it. And then it switches to the outside world and there's people watching the
I
show.
love a good cardigan. Sorry.
I love a good cardigan too.
I love a good cardigan.
They're watching the show and then it starts going into a memory of Truman's and they watch on, the audience watches on. Because again, when you're watching the movie, you think, okay, you're so enthralled in the movie, you forget it's actually a show within a movie. So I like how it switches from people watching the show to the show because tell me what you think. I usually it would take you out of it, but I don't think it never took me out of the story when they kept switching to the audience and then what Truman's doing in his life. What did you feel when they did that?
No, and the reason that it didn't take me out is because they set it up early on.
Mm,
If this movie started out like a normal movie and they didn't tell us that, and
yeah.
if they waited and if they sprang it on us midway through the movie that this whole thing was a fiction and Truman is in a bottle, I think that would have been harder for the audience to accept.
Mm.
But the fact that they started the movie by saying, "Okay, you guys are going to watch a movie within a movie," I think that made it more fascinating.
So we're in one of Truman's memories, and we see how Truman and Meryl met in high school, and it's very much forced. Like he was sitting there, and she pretended she broke her ankle, she fell into him. Like it's very, very orchestrated. But we also see Truman is besotted by another girl who is always conveniently pulled away from Truman until he sees her in the library and he approaches her. And we learn that her name is Lauren Garland now. Who is Lauren Garland? In the previous scene, when he was calling about the Fiji Islands, he was calling to find a girl named Lauren Garland. She is wearing, in the library, she's actually wearing the cardigan that he is holding, that he got out from the box. So we know that there's something there. And in the library, Lauren tells him she's not allowed to talk to him and then says, look, if we're going to do something, we have to do it now because they're going to be here soon. And he's like, well, who's going to be here? Like, again, this is his reality. He has no idea what she's talking about. And she pulls him away and they go to the beach and they're happy and they're running. And then she says, look, they're coming for me. They're going to be here in a minute. And again, he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then she says, everything he thinks is real isn't. Everyone is pretending. This is a set. This
Oh
is a
shit!
show, and her real name is Sylvia. And he's like, wait, what? And then a car drives up, zooms onto the sand. A man pretending to be her dad pulls her into the car, and she's like, I have no idea who this man is. But Truman is like, I don't know what to do. And her dad says, look, they're moving to Fiji, which is why he's got a fascination with Fiji because this girl from high school, he believes is staying there. The magazine cutouts to that he's buying the fashion magazines for. He's trying to recreate Lauren's face, which is really, really, really sweet. But what I want to ask you is this. This is Truman's reality. If somebody came up to you, if somebody that you liked said, this isn't real, this is pretend, this is a set, everybody is acting, like, what would you think?
First of all, I would take a double take and go, wait a minute, what? That would seriously unnerve the shit out of me. Like, first of all, I would give the person I liked a bit of grace, and I'll go, okay, they're not crazy, because that sounds crazy, but why would somebody say something like that's something very specific to say? That would really unnerve me slightly, and that would cause me to be a little bit more cautious, and it would really make me paranoid. If I'm being truthful.
Yeah, I would just think, wow, this person's schizophrenic. Because there's a line that Christoph says later on that is my favorite line of the whole movie, and I will say it when it comes up. But what did you think about the scene, or do you want me to go to the next scene?
I'm really fascinated with the idea that Truman met his wife at a school dance, and she did fall into his arms in a very orchestrated way. But I'm really fascinated with the idea that a woman who got hired to work on the show actually fell in love with Truman.
Mm,
Like that is so cute and so honest and so pure. I really, really love the fact about that movie, about this movie,
mm,
that actually happened. Like from all the people that work on the Truman Show, there's one person that was able to see that he was an actual person,
mm-hmm. Mm, yeah,
and she actually fell for him when
yeah,
everybody else didn't.
yeah.
I I'm fascinated by that. So let's listen. Sometimes all you need in life is one person to say, I love you and I want to be with you, and something is not right here. And that one person will change everything for you.
She's the only reason he wants to leave Sea Haven. And it's interesting because the movie is not a love story, but because he basically is in love with her, the love is what propels him to
To
see the
leave.
unseen, to see that it's fake, to want to leave, to push himself to places that he could never push himself. Because take her out of it, he wouldn't want to go to Fiji. He wouldn't care about traveling. He'd stay in his life. But the only thing real is love for this movie. You know what I mean? Everything else
Mhm.
is fake. And that's what propels him to want to change and to unveil the illusion that they have kind of created for him. And that's why I love this movie. It's really deep.
I think that's one of the that's probably the main reason why I love this movie so much, because it shows you how powerful love can be to someone, and what love can make you do.
Truman is driving to work when the radio station starts skipping. And as it stabilizes, he hears a man basically saying exactly what is happening as it happens to Truman. He comes over, the radio guy goes, okay, he's turning onto Lancaster Road. And then Truman looks and he's turning onto Lancaster Road. And he's like, what the hell? And then because he's looking at the sign that says Lancaster Road, he nearly hits a woman. And that comes over the radio. Oh my God, he nearly hit a woman. And Truman's like, wait, what? And then they realize Truman can hear them. And they're like, quick, switch frequencies, switch frequencies. And then he's looking at the radio like, what the hell? And then in unison, every single person or extra stops and they put a hand to their ear because their earpieces are ringing because they have to switch to another frequency. Because, and this is a great scene because Peter Weir, the director, does this wide shot of the town,
It's so
and
weird.
everybody in unison stops and puts their
Stop.
hand to the ear. So you know, oh my God, it's like if you didn't know before, you know now. Everybody is an actor.
I mean,
Everybody.
I mean, that scene got me wondering. Would you imagine if they started this movie straight and they played it straight, and that was and this is the moment that the turn comes? Listen,
That'd be
if that
fun.
if the movie was like that, would you like this movie that much?
I don't know. I don't know. I think it would be a massive what's
Turn.
twist.
Okay. Okay.
So now Truman is semi convinced something is off because little things have happened and he's been able to explain them away. But the radio thing, he can't there's he just goes, okay, that's just a little bit too weird. And so he begins to walk, and I love this scene too. He begins to walk the streets slowly, and I love the score. I don't know who the composer was. The score music in the Truman Show is
It's
absolutely
so
beautiful,
good.
and I love
Oh my
this score. I love it.
the
It's so good,
um the end credits for this movie is so good.
so good, so good.
Like when the movie's over, the music
Yeah,
they play over the credits
yeah,
is fucking great.
yeah. This piece of music, when he begins to walk the streets slowly, because he's looking around to see if he can see anything that's maybe out of turn. And he's going out of his routine. Like he goes to walk into work, but then he walks out of work. And then he walks down the street and he's scanning people. He's looking for, is anything like weird? Are they looking at me? And then he sits down at like a random cafe and he's still looking at people, seeing if anything is amiss. You can see his eyes like darting everywhere. And then he goes into a building and people freak out. And he's like, why is everyone looking at him? Because it's Truman. They know it's Truman, but he doesn't go into that building. That's not part of his routine. He goes to use the elevator and the doors open and he sees behind the doors opening, there's craft services where the lift should be, where the elevator should be. And he's like, wait, what? And then the security grab him and they throw him out. They're like, oh, you can't be here anymore. And Truman fucking chucks a shit. And then Truman starts freaking out because now he knows something is wrong. Something is definitely wrong. And you can't, at this point, you can't convince him that he's crazy because he knows what he's seen. And this is when he truly starts to, it's when the illusion starts to unfold in his mind, which is fantastic.
Okay. Well, here's my problem with that. If you're gonna have somebody in a bottle for their entire lives, you have to make sure everything is covered. And I'm talking about every fucking thing.
Mm.
How in the world did they not have everything covered in every fucking building in the town to make sure everywhere Truman goes looks like a real place, even if he's not supposed to be in there at the moment?
Because Truman is in his 30s, and for 30 years, Truman has done exactly the same thing. Well, for his adult life, he goes to work, he goes to the fashion stand. He never does anything out of the ordinary. But today, he was just too quick for them. They weren't
They weren't
ready.
ready.
They weren't
They
ready
weren't
because
ready.
they weren't. Like all the actors were there, all the buildings were there, like everything was normal except for the I keep wanting to call it a lift, which it is. That's what we call it.
Yeah, yeah. It's a lift. It's a
We
lift.
call it a lift. Americans call it an elevator. Except for the lift. That was the only thing that was amiss. Everything else was normal. And that was just an error in judgment. But everything
Right.
else was like on point. So if that never happened, he probably would have been like, oh, everything's normal. So yeah, it's just he was just too quick. He was just too quick, I think.
Okay, okay. But also, I really like the sense of like panic that's going to come over Truman in the next couple scenes, and like
Yeah.
the watching Jim Carrey just go kind of a little nuts in the next scenes is really entertaining.
He plays it perfectly because it's exactly what happens when your belief system is ripped away. You do kind of go psychotic
Yeah, yeah, you do.
because nothing is real anymore. Nothing you
Yeah.
believed is real, and so fuck, why not? Let's just go fucking crazy town.
Yep. Let's go.
So when he exits the building, when they throw him out, he sees Marlon's truck and he runs into the store. Marlon is there working and he tells him, "Look, something is wrong. Something is up." He goes, "There are people watching him. I need you to go. I need you to come with me." And Marlon's like, "Yeah, I'm working. I can't go." And he goes, "No, no. The radio was tracking me. Something is going on. Like I could hear the people on the radio, and it was like exactly where I was, exactly what I was doing." Marlon goes, "Who's watching you?" And he goes, "It could be anyone. They look like everybody else." And then he does this thing where he claps really loudly, and he goes, "Anything?" And Marlon turns around, and he goes, "No, nothing." Like nobody looks up, and Truman is like, "See?" Because if somebody does that, usually there's one or two people that look that get their attention, but because they're actors, they're trained not to
Don't
not to
move.
go out of their what they're
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah.
And
Characters.
so
Yeah. No.
exactly. And
No.
so he just thinks that's fucking weird.
You know what they are. You know what they are.
What?
They're extras. And
They're
and
extras, yeah.
And the first thing that you tell actors on a film set is go, okay, guys, no matter what happens, don't move from your mark or what you're
Yes.
doing. No matter,
Yes.
no matter what happens.
Yep. Exactly. He tells Marlon he's going away for a while because he doesn't want to be there anymore. And Marlon again tries to convince him this is the best place on earth. There's nowhere like it. Before it was convincing. Now Truman has seen too much and he just wants to leave. Even just to clear his head, he wants to leave. But yeah, they're trying everything to convince him not to because there's nowhere to go. He's in a fucking he's on a set. There's nowhere to go.
Yeah, listen. I felt really bad for Truman at this point because every person in his life who he thought is a friend is constantly telling him that he's crazy, that they're boxing him in. Even when he even when he runs into the store and talks to Marlon, the way that Marlon deals with the situation is very very a matter of fact. Like Dean said, everybody treats him like he's crazy, and that's annoying to me.
Yeah, that really pissed me off. It really fucking annoyed me. So anyway, Truman's at his mum's house again. And he's with his mum and Meryl, and they're going through childhood photos of him because they know he wants to leave. So they're showing him photos of him traveling all over the world. And look, you've been here and you've been there. You just don't remember it. You were too young. And even Truman looks at the photo and it looks photoshopped, and it is. And they quickly kind of turn the page. It's like, you've been everywhere. You don't need to experience that again. He's like, okay. And then they leave. And he puts on the TV and I love this, an advertisement comes on for old songs. And the first song is "You Don't Have to Leave Home to Know What the World is About," right? Every single thing that he looks at is subliminal messaging is no, don't leave. No. But it's so subtle. I love it. It's never in your face. And then as Truman looks at his wedding photos, he notices Meryl has her fingers crossed. And he's like very obviously, and he's like, "Oh, well, that's fucking weird." So anyway, that's that scene.
I really love in this movie all the subliminal messaging that's in this that is in the movie. Every time Truman, you know, gets the urge to leave the town that he's in, and the thing that I love about it is, like Dean said, it's so expertly done and it's so well put together on the fly that it's really interesting. Also, I really think that it plays into something in real life when you want to do something or when you feel a certain way somehow. In some instances, your life gives you things that either tell you to go towards that thing or to go away from that thing. I just thought of that when I was watching these scenes of these actors and these people giving Truman messages not to go on a trip, or giving him subliminal messages to change his mind to keep him there.
This scene, Meryl is heading to work. Meryl is a nurse. And Truman's like, where are you going? And she's like, oh, I'm going to nurse. I'm going to nurse. I'm going to the hospital. Didn't you see on the news last night there was a horrible like elevator accident, like right next to where you work? I can't believe you didn't. Again, trying to make him believe that what he saw he didn't saw. That it was an accident. There were people injured. The elevator fucked up. And he's just looking at her like, oh, okay. Again, the subliminal messages are not working anymore because his brain is clicked into something is wrong. She goes, oh, I've got surgery. And he's like, okay. And he's in his pajamas. He's like, okay, see you later. See you later. As soon as she leaves, he gets on his bike and he follows her to work because he doesn't fucking trust her. Truman enters the hospital. Nobody's expecting him to be there. And they try to stop him. You've got an orderly that tries to like push a thing in front of him. You've got people trying to stop him and he's trying to weave in and out and stuff. And he gets to the surgery room and he looks in a window and he can see the doctor, he can see Meryl, and they're all in scrubs. And there's a patient and there's an anesthesiologist with the what is it? The cup over the nose and the mouth to breathe in the stuff, right? To put them to sleep. And he's watching it and they know that Truman is there and the doctor, because it's not a doctor, they're actors, right? So the doctor's like, nurse, scalpel, and Meryl gives him the scalpel. And as soon as he touches the leg of the patient jerks upwards. And Truman's like, what? Because the patient's supposed to be out. But it's not out. The patient's not out because they're actors. It's not real. And then security come and haul him away and basically throw him out of the hospital. So now he's seen something again that's not right. In every single scene, he's gonna see something that's not right. So, but I just love how he followed her away. I just thought it was so funny.
Yeah, no, it was a really really cool scene, and again, like the scene that like the scene previously when Truman and his father got taken away in that bus. I really like how when Truman goes to the hospital, people try to stop him from going there, but also when Truman goes up to the operating room door and the actor who plays the doctor actually cuts the extra. I'm like, guys, you should have like stayed still and Truman would have eventually gone away. You didn't have to cut the guy, but I'm like, but by cutting the guy, the writer did a great job of making Truman even more paranoid than he was initially.
So now he goes to a travel agent. He's just like, fuck this. He's got a suitcase packed. He's got everything to go. And it's funny. He walks into the travel agency. All the posters on the wall are of planes crashing and how dangerous it is to fly. Don't fly. And I'm like, oh my God. And then the agent comes out. Where do you want to go? He goes, I want to book a flight to Fiji today. So she goes on the computer and she's like, oh, I don't have anything for almost a month. It's the busy season. He's like, okay. And then he goes to a bus station and he buys a ticket to Chicago and he gets on the bus. He sits right down the back and everyone's looking at him because again, he's not supposed to be there. They're just extras. That he's like a celebrity. Even the bus driver looks at him like, oh, what the fuck am I supposed to do now? He doesn't know what to do. And so he grinds the gears until smoke emerges from the engine and then everybody has to get off the bus. He's beginning to see that like someone or something won't let him leave because he sees that it's bizarre that he can't get off the effing island. Everything goes wrong. But what do you think?
How in the hell are they keeping up with everything that Truman wants to do? Like who's giving these people instructions? Like at this point, I'm like, wait a minute, how? Like, I'm like, how? But at this point, I'm like, how are these people keeping up? I'm just fascinated by the people who actually work on this fucking show. Like, how can they keep up with this guy?
I don't know. They can't though, because they're so used to him being in one routine that when he does anything out of the ordinary, they don't know what to do. They don't.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
This scene is hilarious. This is when Truman cracks it. He's sitting in his car. Meryl comes home from work and he goes, Meryl, get in the car. Get in the car. She gets in the car and he looks in the rear view mirror and he tells her, in a second, we're going to see a lady on a red bike, followed by a man with flowers, then a Volkswagen Beetle with a dented fender. And she goes, oh my God, that's crazy. Tries to get out of the car. He pulls her back and then says, just wait. And then it happens. You see the lady on the red bike. And then he goes, guy with the flowers. And then, and the Volkswagen kind of doesn't come. And Meryl's like, Truman. And then it goes by. He goes, there it is. There's the Volkswagen with the dented finger. There it is. And she's just looking, because obviously she's an actor. She knows the truth, but she's got to keep her cool. He says they're on a loop. They go round. They go round and round and round and round and round. They're on a fucking loop. And then he turns crazy. She tries to get out. He locks the doors and says, let's go to Fiji right now. And she's like, oh my God. He drives like a fucking crazy person until he drives around a roundabout like 50 times, like 10 times. And then he drives down a street. And as he drives down the street, suddenly all these cars come out. And he's like, oh, this street was empty before. Where'd all these cars come from? And Meryl is like, oh, so what? You're blaming me for the traffic? And he's like, you know what? Let's go home. Let's just go home. Let's go home. So she goes, yes, thank you. Let's go home. Everything will be good. He reverses the car and then he goes around the roundabout like 10 times. And she's like, what are you doing? He's like, I don't know what I'm doing. And then he goes down that same street. This is only like 10 seconds. He goes down that same street again and there's no cars. And he goes, oh, isn't this weird? There's no cars. Where'd all the cars go? They were here before. And she just looks at him like she's got nothing. She's got nothing. So he drives past that. And then he gets to a bridge. And Meryl says, look, you can't drive over water. Let's just go home. And he's so fucking determined that he covers his eyes, he puts Meryl's hand on the wheel and he presses the accelerator and she has to steer over the bridge. And they get over the bridge and then they're driving and it's nice, foresty area. And then they come up to people running everywhere. And he's like, what is going on? And they stop. And a policeman tells him there's a leak at the plant and he can't go. He has to go back. And, that would have been okay. But Truman says, thanks. And the policeman says, you're welcome, Truman. And Truman's face is just, because this policeman should not know who he is. And Meryl's face is just like, fuck. Fuck. And so he goes even more crazy. He just runs out of the car. He gets out of the car, runs into the forest, has no idea where he's running, just wants to get the fuck out because now he knows something is wrong. And then he's cornered by all these people in suits. Kind of fucking reminds me of E.T. And then they kind of subdue him. But this is the scene where Truman fucking loses it. And I love it.
Yeah, no, actually, this was my favorite scene in the movie. I actually love it when Truman goes in a circle around like the roundabout. And I love the scene when he predicts what's going to happen on the streets. I love the whole scene because it's just so fun watching Truman go absolutely crazy and watching his wife not know what to do. Like, I understand that she's an actor, but she did not sign up for this shit.
No, she didn't.
No, and I also wonder, like, when she signed up for the Truman Show, did she have to sign a contract for like how many years, or like, what was she going to be his wife until he died?
So that's the thing. No, I don't think so, because later on we realize her character arc is basically she leaves him, but she's been with him since high school. So to pretend to be someone's wife as an acting job, how would you have a life of your own? Like, when do you go home? You literally be living in this false reality. When does she leave? Does she have friends on the outside world? What happens?
She could just get a break when Truman thinks she's at work.
Maybe.
Right? And
could be.
Truman sleeps, right?
Yeah.
So when he sleeps, she could do whatever she wants.
Yeah, I guess. It just struck me as like, how would you have a life outside of that? Because that would be your entire life.
Yeah. That's but no, look. You make a great point. I'm just trying to give you options.
Yeah, I know. I'll take him. I'll take
Yeah.
the options. So Truman is now home with Meryl, and he's getting the shits with her because he knows something's wrong because she keeps doing this thing, right? Because it's a show. And she keeps picking up random items, holding them in front of her and like doing an advertisement. Like, did you know that like this cocoa is like 100% blah 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 blah? And Truman's like, "Who are you talking to? Who are you talking to?" Like, and it's just like because she does that. She did that all the time. He never noticed, but now his reality is starting to collapse. He's noticing all this weird shit that she does that doesn't seem normal to him. So he's getting the shits with her. And then he grabs her because he knows she's lying to him. He knows she's not telling him the truth. And she looks dead on at one of the cameras and screams, "Do something." And Truman goes, "Who are you talking to?" And she's like, he's like, "Who are you talking to?" And then literally a second later, Marlon knocks on the door conveniently with beers and then catches them and stuff like that. But it's just like, again, she's pushed to her brink. So she's saying, "Help me." And they did send help. They sent Marlon. But now Truman can't come back. He can't live in his false reality anymore. It's quickly falling apart. So thoughts.
Yeah, but here's the thing. How in the fuck didn't they think about this? Nobody thought about this. Nobody thought that Truman might one day go crazy and go nuts. Nobody, seriously, Dean, help me. Nobody thought about this? Nobody?
I'm gonna answer that question later. Because I have an answer.
Okay.
But I'm gonna answer you later.
Okay. All right. Listen, it was just really, really cool to see this poor actress who plays Truman's wife lose her shit because for the whole movie she's been composed, but the last two scenes has been her not knowing what to do, and I really, really love the fact that Truman can pick up on how artificial her thing is for the first
Mm.
time in the movie. And it's such a joy when she just loses it and she looks dead, like Dean said, she looks dead at one of the cameras. She goes, "Help me." Next thing we know, Marlon shows up. It's just great.
Yeah. So Truman and Marlon are having a deep and meaningful. And Marlon is saying all these words like, "Look, if everything was fake, I would have to be fake. And I'm not fake because I've been your best friend since year 7. You know, we cheated off of each other's tests. You know, I've been with you since the beginning. So if everybody's in on it, then I would have to be kind of in on it too." But and this is where the
You
fuckery
are.
comes. Yeah, but that's the thing. This is where the fuckery comes into it. As he's saying all these amazing words to Truman, we see Christoph at headquarters is actually feeding him what to say. He's got a little Marlon has a little earpiece in. So it's not even coming from him.
Oh,
And that's when you think, how can you do this to someone? How could you
God
do this to someone? So
damn
fuck.
it, you fucking idiots. God, I fucking hate
So
the
fuck.
scene, but off you go.
Oh, so fuck.
Oh,
Then Marlon says, "Oh, I have a surprise for you. I found your dad." And it's the homeless guy. And we see Christoph directing it. This is the first time because their headquarters are in the moon. And we see Christoph
well,
directing it.
hold up.
Yeah.
Hold up. We were just talking about how awesome it is. Their headquarters is in the moon.
Epic.
They're
That's
on
like
the
that's
moon.
like Death Star shit. That's epic. We see Christoph directing it, and he's going, "Okay, switch to button cam, switch to wide shot, switch to this camera angle." And he puts score music. He goes, "All right, start the piano, start the score music. Okay, now lift it up." Like as we see people watching on TV, as if it's fucking Young and the Restless, Days of Our Lives, right? And we see them embrace. And then Christoph says, "Go to a close up of Truman's face," and Truman's crying, and the sad score music starts coming up. Like, and now you get your first glimpse into how it's actually orchestrated and how it's directed and how fucked up it actually is. But then we switch to Lauren slash Sylvia watching on the outside because she doesn't work there anymore. She's watching on the outside, and you can see she thinks that this is so wrong what they're doing to him. And behind her is a poster that says "Free Truman," and there's a rally that's coming up. So obviously there are people in the world that think that this is just fucking wrong. But yeah, it shows how fucked up it really is. This scene.
Yeah, no, I was just disgusted. I was completely disgusted. Like I was like, you motherfuckers on the moon, you all need to die. I hope that when Truman gets out of there, I hope that he got a lawyer and he sued Christoph into fucking next week. Like how the fuck, how dare he and how dare these motherfuckers? I'm like, I was just incensed. I know I was supposed to feel something with the scene that Christoph did, but I was just pissed. How about you?
Yeah, I'm pissed off because there are so many people in the world that would do that to someone. I wouldn't even think twice. That's what really, because it's not a movie. Like it's a movie, but there are
No,
people that do that to people.
no, but if you look at like The Bachelor, any fucking reality show, all that fucking shit is orchestrated. I mean, Dean had a great point at the beginning at the beginning of our episode. Some of it is real, but 99% of the Bachelor bullshit is all fake. It's all
It's
fake.
fake. It's fake, but the difference is these people on these reality shows, they know they're on a reality show. They've made the
Right.
choice. Truman doesn't know.
Truman doesn't know. Yeah.
That's the fucked up bit.
Yeah.
So now we get more information on the world that they made for Truman, and it's broadcast. The show is broadcast 24/7, has its own fucking
Oh,
channel, and it's on one of the biggest studios ever constructed. It's visible from space. It's just outside Hollywood, and Christoph is being interviewed. And he says he had to come up with how to keep Truman on the island so he wouldn't leave. So he created, this is how fucked up, he created a trauma in a little boy, which is the death of his father by sea, in order to make him afraid of the ocean. Like, anyway, I can't
oh,
even with that.
God damn it.
And they picked Truman as a baby because he was an unwanted pregnancy and he was adopted by the corporation. And I was like, "Oh my fucking god. Thank God you can't do that yet."
Oh my God.
Yeah. And there was a question, and this is my answer that I said I was going to tell you later. This is what it is. There was a question.
Um,
Why do you think Truman has never questioned his world? And this is my favorite piece of dialogue that Christoph says. He says, "We accept the reality of the world with which we are presented." And that
oh,
goes
that's
for
great.
every single person on the planet. Every single person lives in their own reality. Every single person sees people differently to how you see it. If I see someone and get to know someone, and Marcelo sees someone and gets to know someone, he will see them differently to the way I see them. He may see them as a villain, I may see them as a hero. We construct our own mental lives in order to cope with what we're presented. We all put forth coping mechanisms. And it's like we all live in our own little special fantasy world. And this is what he's done to Truman. He's created a fantasy world, but he's presented it in such a way that that is his reality. And that is why Truman has never questioned it, because we accept the reality of the world with which we are presented. So that is answering your question.
Yeah, no, that is so great, and it is so fucked up that this fucking asshole came up with this trauma for this kid, and it's fucked up that Truman got bought by a fucking corporation.
Mm,
Like how
no.
fucked up is that?
Lauren calls in and tells Christoph he's sick for what he's done to Truman. And Christoph replies with, and this is not, it's not right, it's not wrong. I'm kind of on the fence about it. Christoph replies with, he's given Truman the world we should all be living in because the real world is sick. He's not wrong. But just by that piece of dialogue, Christoph is the villain of the story. But villains, written correctly, think that they're doing a service, think that they're doing the right thing. So everything he's providing with Truman, he's like, no, I'm keeping him away from um, diseases. I'm keeping him away from illnesses. I'm keeping him away from the destruction of the world, the shitty people of the world, the fucked up people, the fucked up situations, the hurricanes, the tornadoes. I'm keeping him away from all of that. I'm putting him where everybody should live. So he actually thinks he's doing a good thing, which is why he doesn't think twice about what he's doing. Because why wouldn't someone want to live in a perfect world like that? I mean, he's not really wrong.
Yeah, but here's another thing. That's why Christoph is such a great character, because he thinks he's justified. Living in a glass box for your entire life is fine, but sometimes it's boring. Part of the human experience is seeing death, seeing awful things. That's part of the human experience. If you live in a plastic bubble your whole fucking life, you don't really live. You don't know what the life is if you're in a box.
Mm.
To experience life, you have to go outside of your box. You have to get uncomfortable with things. You have to get in fights with people. You have to get in disappear. You have to get in disagreements with people. You have to fall in love. You have to get your heart broken. You have to experience all that because that's part of the human experience. And
Yes.
Christoph, despite him thinking that he's a hero, is robbing Truman of that human thing that we all get to have.
You know what I would love? I would love a little bit of backstory on Christoph because I think that would give him more of a motive to do what he had to do. Let's just pretend that Christoph had a really fucked up life, saw really fucked up things, and went, you know what? I want to create a world without those things. That would give him more justification in what he's doing.
Yeah. That totally would have been perfect. I'm in complete agreement. I'm in complete agreement with you on that.
So the next day, Truman is acting as if everything is fine. He's back to normal. He even leaves the house. He says, in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Very happy go lucky. Everything's fine.
Oh,
Now, at headquarters in the moon, they're watching the cams as they do, and Truman is asleep in the basement under the blanket. Now, the reason he's there is because Meryl is fed up with him and left him, and he's sulking in the basement. But they can't see his face. They can hear him sleeping, but he's covered his whole body with the blanket. Christoph comes in and says, "Don't you have a better angle than this?" And they're like, "No, well, he's sleeping. I saw him come in. He put the covers over himself and is sleeping." But Christoph, he knows something is wrong. And he gets Marlon to go over there. Just go over there right now. It's the middle of the night. Marlon arrives, goes downstairs, uncovers the covers and finds like a toy, blow up toy penguin and a recording of someone breathing loudly. And Christoph is like, oh shit. And then he goes, look, he's in there. Try and find him because there's no way he would have left. They would have seen him. Marlon looks everywhere and then he opens the cupboard. And when he opens the cupboard, there's a little ladder in there, and Truman in the cupboard has made a hole to like the above ground, and he's crawled out of it. So they didn't see him. And they're like, Christoph is just having a fit. He's having because now they don't know where he is. And he says to cut transmission, which in the 30 years that they've been broadcasting, they've never done that. And they cut the transmission. And so now the hunt is on for Truman because they don't know where the fuck he is. But this is why Truman acted as if everything was fine because he knows something. He doesn't know he's on a show, but he knows that people are watching him. So if he acts like everything's normal, then they're not going to be following him and on his ass so much. So he did that in order to disarm them into believing that everything was fine. And so he could make his escape.
it is such a great scene. I mean, it's such a great scene when when Marlon goes in the basement, he pulls off the blanket. Truman's not there, and we find out how Truman is to escape. It's such a great scene, and I really love the moment where Christoph loses his mind because I'm like, these motherfucking people have to suffer now. Truman has gone through enough. I would like to see him escape now, please.
Yeah. So they're looking for him. They can't find him anywhere. They've got every single available extra trying to find him. And Christoph says, I don't know, like, where could he be? Like, they're searching everywhere. And there's not many places, like, the town is small and there's cameras everywhere. And then Christoph says, we're not watching the sea. And the guy sitting there is like, why would we watch the sea? And they look at the ocean and they see Truman on a sailboat. They're not watching the sea because he has a trauma, but he's so invested in getting the fuck out. He can't go by plane. He can't go by bus. Maybe he can go by sea. He looks at the face composite that he made from the fashion magazines and it looks like Lauren. And Lauren is watching and she's just like, oh my God. Now, he has loved her since he was 17 and he's 30 now. That's soulmate shit. That has not
That's
gone
so
away.
much.
That's soulmate shit. Even though he hasn't seen her in fucking 15 years, that's soulmate shit. Now Christoph has to stop Truman. In order to stop him, he uses the weather program to create a storm, just like he did with his dad when he was a boy. Truman, and it's a ferocious storm. Truman falls overboard. but climbs back up because he's just determined he's not going to give up. Christoph intensifies the storm because Christoph is just like, he can't leave because this is his life's work, not realize he doesn't look at Truman like a human. He just looks at him like a thing to make money off of. And he doesn't
Like
care
a
if Truman
kid.
lives or exactly. He doesn't care if Truman lives or dies. Now Truman goes under the water for a while and then Christoph finally goes, all right, just pull back on the storm. Because at that point he realizes maybe he's kind of done the wrong thing. Now, what do you think about the first part before I go on to the second part?
I really like this part that Truman has to do the one thing that he is so afraid of to get out. I think that is really really poetic that Truman has to face his fears to really escape and really get to his real life. I think that is genius writing by the writer. And I also like it that in the moment that Christoph is trying to stop Truman from escaping, there is this moment where Christoph goes, there's like this slight moment where Christoph starts to question himself. I mean, Christoph is an asshole. He's a great character, but he's an asshole.
Mm,
But I do like that he does have that one moment where he does question himself. Is this the right thing that I should be doing right now?
mm.
After 30 years of creating this show, after 30 years of creating this fiction, I like that he had a moment of pause there.
So Truman continues on the boat. When the boat sails straight into the side of the dome, but it's painted to look like the sky, so he thought it was just the horizon. And he's like, what the He doesn't even know what to think or what this is, and eventually he finds a staircase leading to a door. Christoph begins to speak to Truman. It sounds like the word of God, but Truman can hear, he says, Truman, I can hear you if you talk. And he's telling him he's the creator of a TV show and Truman is the star. And Truman says was nothing real. And Christoph says you were real. And then Christoph tries to convince him to stay, saying you won't leave because you're afraid. And he says, and Truman is kind of standing there and he doesn't know what to say. And Christoph says, say something, damn it, you're on TV. Lauren is watching on as Truman, and she wants him. She goes, come on, Truman, you can do it. You can do it. Just leave, just leave, just leave, just leave. And Truman turns around and he says, in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. And then he takes a bow and then steps through the dark doorway. And we cross to Lauren. Lauren races out of her apartment down the stairs because she knows exactly where the dome is because she used to work there. This is the really fun part or funny part. Everyone watching is rejoicing. Oh my God, he did it, he did it, he did it. And they cease transmission because that's the end of the show. Now, this show has been on for 30 years. These people are invested. It's like a soapy. When some people watching the show, as soon as it ceases transmission, they're like, do you want to see what else is on? And they're like, yeah, do you want to get the TV guide? And that is disturbing. You've watched this guy grow up for 30 years, and just like that, it's like, oh, let's just watch. It just shows the attention span of people, and people, they didn't really care about him. They just
No, they
watched it. They
didn't.
just thought it was a fucking show. And that
Yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
people from today.
That's really
Anyway,
disturbing.
that's the end. That's the end.
No, but I'm with Dean. That is truly disturbing that people watching this grown man grow up to 30 years old. He gets his freedom. They're all excited for him. They're all excited for him for like 30 seconds, and then like change the channel, watch something else. That's indicative of where our culture is now with social media. Like our attention spans is shit because of social media. It's like it's worse now than it was in the 90s and early 2000s.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Trivia.
Yes, go ahead.
In the original script, Truman was living in a recreation of New York, but Peter Weir changed it to a sleepy town because he thought it would work better.
I like that change because the sleepy town aspect and the 50s style to it blends better with the 50s with a sleepy town rather than a big city.
Yes, and the town that they filmed him is a real town called Seaside in Florida. That's a real town.
Oh wow. Okay.
Originally, Truman was supposed to be just out of high school, like 17 years old, but it was changed to accommodate Jim Carrey's age because Jim Carrey wanted to do the script.
I like that change because listen, Jim Carrey makes this movie.
Of
If it
course he does.
if it if it was not for Jim Carrey, I don't know if I would care so much about Truman.
Yeah. It took 3 years from the director receiving the script to the film's completion.
3 years.
And that is
Huh.
why, the reason why, sorry, I should say, is because in between that, because it took so long to get the script underway, Jim was filming a couple of movies in between, but they waited for him because they wanted him for this role.
Oh,
So they waited for him to
okay.
finish his movies, right? But
Okay.
this is the thing that's really that's really I don't know if this is good or bad. The script originally was more comedic. Jim Carrey came along and wanted to make it more dramatic, still keeping the comedy, but making it a little bit more dramatic because in his contract, it actually said he can make script changes because he's Jim Carrey. If you want him, you abide by what he wants. At the beginning, Peter Weir did not like Jim. Jim was saying, do this and do that with the script. Not that Peter Weir was the screenwriter, but Peter Weir was getting sick of him. But when
Sick of
he when he actually heard what Jim wanted to do with the script, he was actually like, that kind of maybe works better. So he was on board. But this poor screenwriter, oh my God, this poor guy wrote between 12 and 16 drafts of the script before Peter Weir considered it ready for filming.
Oh my
Oh my
god.
God, I
What
blew my
the
brains out. Oh, fucking hell.
hell no, absolutely not. I'm sorry, Peter Weir, but you gotta have to find yourself another writer because I ain't not doing that.
Well, do you know what? I would love to read the original script of this film, but what
It's
they
probably
came
out
up
there.
with is probably out there, but this script is actually really great. So whatever changes they
Yeah.
made, it worked really, really well.
You know, the one thing I've always hated about this movie, well, the one thing not hated is the wrong word. The one thing that I've always been sometimes sad about is that we never got to see a reunion between Truman and the girl that he's loved since high school.
Oh,
Like,
I wanted that so badly. Every time I watch the Truman Show, all I want is to see the reunion between them,
yeah,
but I know it's not
don't
coming.
like, yeah, no, but no, but it would have been a simple fix. Like, have her walk down the stairs, cut to Truman coming out of the soundstage or wherever the fuck he is, and and have her driving up in a car.
Yeah, or having her run down the street and run into him because he's confused. He doesn't know where he's going. Oh my God, that would have been so good.
Yeah, that I would. Oh, yeah. It's just like I love this movie, but the end always makes me happy, but it does break my heart because I want just a little bit more.
Yeah, me too, me too. All right, that's the end of the trivia. Shall we go now?
Yeah, take us home.
If you want to email us, you can email us at themixtapepod at AOL.com. We hope you've enjoyed our analyzation of The Truman Show, and you can subscribe if you love us. You can like. You can listen to us on YouTube or on any podcast platform. Up next week, we have a truly epic winter, frosty horror movie. We have 30 Days of Night starring Josh Hartnett and the Australian actress Melissa George. So please join us for that. And
In case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
the Mixtape Podcast is a Balloonhead Productions presentation.